Hello friends, this is Joe with Tech Adventure, and you're looking at a Lenovo ThinkPad P1, not an Extreme. This is not the ThinkPad Extreme line. This is the P series. Now the P series, they're positioned as workstations, like mobile workstations. So if you're doing like heavy coding, heavy CAD, you need intense video processing, many of these laptops, not this particular model, but many of them will ship with Quadro GPUs. And I've done those reviews on my channel before. So when Lenovo asked me to review this, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll review a P series. You know, just did one, let's do another one. But instead, what I got was this P1 Gen 4 is very much like the Extremes, like the ThinkPad Extreme or like a Dell XPS 15, meaning you don't have to only buy it for those hardcore situations. Or in other words, it has the same components that you would expect from the two other laptops I mentioned a moment ago. For example, the GPU is not a Quadro. It's a standard RTX 3070 Max-Q, and it's perfectly suitable for gaming. It's not going to be like a gaming laptop because it's just not built for that. It doesn't have the same type of cooling. And I don't actually know what the TDP is. I should check, but, well, I say that, but I'm still filming, so you're probably not going to know the answer from me. But anyway, the display is only 60 Hertz, so it's not really configured for gaming, but it can support gaming. Also, the battery life is surprisingly good, so you wouldn't think of a mobile workstation of having like 6 to 7 hours of battery life, but this one does. Now, that's not with the GPU being really pushed, that's just with doing office work. So Teams, Outlook, Excel, Word, web surfing, couch surfing, or surfing while on the couch. Anyway, who surfs for couches? I don't. But I do surf when I'm on the couch, so I guess that's where the term comes from. So it is definitely suitable for that, and the fact that the battery does last pretty well is surprising. It is a 4K display, so I expected the battery to drain a lot faster, but it turns out that this is has a 90 watt-hour battery. So makes sense that it would have decent battery life despite the very high resolution display. The display itself is very good with HDR. The colors look really awesome. It's surprising to me because, again, workstation doesn't have to be pretty on the eyes, but in this case it definitely is. Now it does have a vapor chamber that does help with the cooling, so I think that's one of the reasons why it doesn't get too loud. So for the most part, it runs at about 50 to 51 decibels when you're really pushing the GPU, which is not that loud, particularly relative to GPU-intense laptops like the one behind this, which you can barely see, which is the Legion 5 Pro. It's an actual gaming laptop. Okay, so this thing is not inexpensive. It starts at about $3,000, but Lenovo does tend to have sales, so you can get it at a discount. Right now, it's at time of filming, which is mid to late March. It is $2,500 that's on sale at Lenovo's website. So this exact configuration, which is the 16 gigs of RAM, half a terabyte SSD Gen 4, 11th gen Intel i7, so the 11850H, and that 3070 GPU that I mentioned, it actually retails full MSRP at $4,300 US. But again, because of Lenovo's constant sales, it's $2,500, which is still a pretty penny. You can go to Best Buy, you can get Dell XPS 15 with a very nice chassis. I don't actually like it as much as this, and that's full aluminum with these sharp edges. This is that nice matte coating, which I'll give you a better view on here in a moment, from Lenovo's ThinkPad line, and you would pay $1,600, $1,700 at Best Buy for that Dell XPS 15. This, very similar specifications, definitely a better GPU and a vapor chamber, but more expensive. But your work will more likely pay for this, I would imagine, than the Dell XPS. Okay, so first of all, the keyboard is fantastic. This is a typical Lenovo ThinkPad keyboard. It feels great to type on. It's one of those keyboards where if you're not used to them, you just need a minute to get used to the function and control being in different places before you get used to the keyboard. Although, you can go into Lenovo software that comes pre-installed, and you can change that so that the letters stay the same, but the functionality changes. So if you're used to control being on the far left, pressing function will serve the same purpose as you're used to. Now, despite that, I think it doesn't take too long to get used to this keyboard. There's also a nice function lock up here, so you have access to all these secondary functions like muting your microphone, adjusting your volume, your brightness, turning on airplane mode, because if you're a frequent traveler, you may want a ThinkPad, or you may be more inclined to own a ThinkPad or lease one from your work. And then it has quick answer keys. These work with Microsoft Teams, which can be very helpful. Although with all my devices ringing when I get a Teams call, I'm too disturbed to know what to press. It's wild. Something I think is important to call out is just how greasy and fingerprint attractive this model is. I don't know what's going on because normally when I get a ThinkPad, it's not this bad. I actually think this giant little smudge is from my son. I probably shouldn't blame my kids, but I'm pretty darn sure he did that. I could be wrong though, because there's a very similar amount here, which I was using a ton myself. I don't clean these laptops before I do the reviews because I want you guys to get a real world understanding of what it's like to use them. And you'll see that on the lid, it's also kind of greasy, and I know my son didn't touch the lid because I had it open for a long time. But anyhow, there is this cool design, this honeycomb type pattern. It's a little hard to pick up on the camera here, but it doesn't have a different feel, if that makes sense. Sometimes you see these designs and you rub your fingers on them and it can be a little bit weird or nauseating. That's not the case here. Okay, on the right hand side we have a full SD card slot, there we go, and two USB-A ports. I believe that this one's a 3 and this one's a USB 4. And on the other side, if you own other ThinkPads or Lenovo laptops, you may have a spare plug lying around. 230 watts for this. It's a decent sized brick to support the GPU, but for a mobile workstation, for a P series, it's really not that big. And then two Thunderbolt ports and an HDMI out with a headphone jack. And on the back, you get your just, standard sort of design with the ventilation. There's a foot. It's just not that thick. I'm really surprised by this. Most of the time when you get a mobile workstation, they're very thick laptops. Oh, I also want to call this out. I love Lenovo's badge. I know that might seem weird, but you know what? Hey, if you're into ThinkPads, if you're part of that crew, then you're used to being in awe about various aspects of the design, and that's something that I like a lot. There's also Windows Hello support to log into this laptop. You can use either the infrared camera, or there's a fingerprint sensor, or reader rather, right here on the power button, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it's there. If I owned this laptop, I would remove these stickers, particularly since they weren't placed correctly. This one's at an odd angle. The trackpad is very good. I mentioned the keyboard already, and the speakers are surprisingly good for a Windows-based machine. So overall, I'm a really big fan of this machine. There was a part of me, so I normally like to roll with like a 14-inch laptop, something like a ThinkPad Carbon X1, but I was looking at this going, man, this is not too heavy. It's very viable for travel, and you get a bigger display, and it's really nicely built with decent battery life. Maybe I should be looking at a laptop like this for my next machine, particularly since it has a GPU. But for my work style, I do work on a Lenovo desktop, and then I've got my gaming laptop for mobile gaming situations, and the Steam Deck's coming out. It's a complicated world out there, but if you're in good fortune and you have the ability to choose what you want, and maybe you have multiple types of laptops out there, if you're looking for a still mobile laptop, something you can travel with, take it on a plane, take it to a cafe, get good battery life, good performance for office type use, and do a little bit of gaming, although with the 60 Hz display, I definitely recommend the P1 Gen 4. This is a good machine, and I'm excited to see what Lenovo does with the Gen 5, which should have better cooling just right off the bat because of the thermal variability that Intel brought with the 12th Gen processors, which I still haven't got my hands on one of those laptops, but from everything I've read, everything I'm seeing, that seems to be the case. So this next gen could be even better, and I wouldn't be surprised if Lenovo throws a higher resolution, or rather a higher refresh rate display out there, just because they're starting to do that with their other models that they've already announced. Especially the ThinkPad Extreme is doing that. So, okay, I hope you found this very helpful, and I appreciate you guys watching. Remember that you can join the Locals community. There's a free membership, and we're doing giveaways. I gave away a $5,000 ThinkPad. We're giving away, or already would have given away by the time you see this, two of these, the Legion 5 Pros. And yeah, I'm really stoked that Lenovo trusts me to do these types of giveaways. And of course, we do them in partnership with Geeks Worldwide, so you get that support as well. So yeah, check it out. I'm going to send this one back to Lenovo. Thank you guys for sending this over for review, and we'll catch you on the next video. Cheers.